Cinema Verite. Tiffany wants to see the new Marvel movie because some lifestyle blogger she follows posted about how it represents important progress in superhero representation, and she needs content for her Instagram story about supporting diverse storytelling in mainstream entertainment. The film cost $300 million to produce and will probably gross over $1 billion worldwide because audiences have been trained to consume the same formulaic garbage with different CGI effects and token diversity casting. We're at the AMC Lincoln Square because it has the largest IMAX screen in Manhattan, and Tiffany read somewhere that true cinema appreciation requires optimal viewing conditions and premium audio systems. The tickets cost $48 each plus another $60 for overpriced concessions that taste like chemicals and corn syrup. Everything about the movie theater experience has been designed to extract maximum revenue from people who mistake sensory bombardment for artistic achievement. The lobby is filled with exactly the demographic you'd expect for a Marvel movie on opening weekend. Suburban families who drove in from New Jersey and Connecticut. College students wearing superhero merchandise they bought on Amazon. Middle-aged men who collect action figures and still live with their parents. Teenage couples on dates who think sharing overpriced candy represents romantic intimacy. The great American middle class consuming corporate entertainment products and convincing themselves they're participating in cultural experiences. "I'm so excited," Tiffany says, taking selfies with the movie posters in the background. "This is supposed to be the most diverse Marvel movie ever made. The representation is going to be incredible." Representation. Like the ethnicity and sexual orientation of fictional characters who punch CGI monsters somehow addresses systemic inequality in actual society. Hollywood has convinced an entire generation that consuming the right entertainment products constitutes political activism and social justice advocacy. Watch a movie with a black superhero and you've contributed to civil rights progress. Stream a film with a gay character and you've advanced LGBTQ equality. The audience filing into our theater represents a perfect cross-section of contemporary American mediocrity. Soccer moms in athleisure wear who think Marvel movies are sophisticated because they reference other Marvel movies. IT workers who discuss plot holes and continuity errors with the intensity of Talmudic scholars. Film students who analyze superhero movies as if they contain philosophical depth and artistic merit instead of just focus-grouped emotional manipulation designed to sell merchandise. We find our seats in the middle section where Tiffany can take the best photos of herself experiencing premium entertainment in optimal viewing conditions. She immediately starts documenting our movie theater experience for her Instagram story while explaining to her followers how supporting diverse filmmaking aligns with her values about representation and inclusivity in popular culture. The previews begin and they're exactly what you'd expect from contemporary Hollywood. A remake of a 1980s comedy with the male characters replaced by women and minorities. A biopic about some historical figure reimagined through the lens of contemporary social justice ideology. A young adult adaptation where teenagers save the world through the power of friendship and accepting differences. Every single trailer looks like it was designed by a committee of diversity consultants and market research analysts. "These all look amazing," Tiffany whispers, apparently unaware that she's looking at the same recycled formula with different demographic casting designed to appeal to different market segments while avoiding any content that might challenge audience assumptions or require actual thought. The main feature starts with the Marvel Studios logo and orchestral music designed to trigger Pavlovian responses in audiences who've been conditioned to associate these stimuli with entertainment satisfaction. The opening scene establishes our new superhero as a young black woman from a working-class neighborhood who discovers she has magical powers that allow her to fight interdimensional threats while dealing with everyday problems like student loan debt and gentrification. Within the first 10 minutes, the film has checked every box on the contemporary diversity checklist. Female protagonist who doesn't need male rescue. Ethnic minority casting that provides representation without alienating white audiences. Social issues commentary that feels relevant without being too specific or challenging. LGBTQ supporting characters whose sexuality is mentioned just enough to generate progressive media coverage without affecting international box office potential. The plot follows the exact same structure as every other Marvel movie. Origin story establishing powers and personal stakes. Introduction of villain who represents some kind of systemic threat. Initial failure and self-doubt overcome through friendship and self-acceptance. Final battle with spectacular CGI effects and minimal actual consequences. Post-credit scene setting up the next installment in the franchise. But the real purpose isn't storytelling, it's ideological programming disguised as entertainment. Every scene reinforces contemporary progressive orthodoxy about gender roles, racial dynamics, and social justice priorities. The villains represent traditional authority structures and conservative values. The heroes embody diversity, inclusivity, and resistance to oppression. The message is clear: old ways of thinking are evil, new ways of thinking are heroic. This is so empowering, Tiffany whispers during a scene where the protagonist rejects advice from an older white male mentor figure who represents patriarchal authority and institutional oppression. She's finding her own path and refusing to be limited by other people's expectations. Empowering. Right. She's being empowered by a $300 million corporate product designed to sell toys and theme park tickets to people who mistake consumer choices for personal identity and political activism. The entire film is a marketing campaign for merchandise and streaming subscriptions wrapped in progressive rhetoric about representation and social change. The supporting characters represent a carefully focus-grouped selection of demographic categories designed to maximize audience identification and minimize controversy. The gay best friend provides comic relief without challenging heteronormative assumptions. The wise elderly black mentor offers spiritual guidance rooted in unspecified African traditions. The ambitious Asian American scientist demonstrates that model minorities can achieve success through hard work and technical expertise. Each character delivers dialogue that sounds like it was written by diversity consultants who've never had actual conversations with people from the demographics they're attempting to represent. The black characters discuss systemic racism using academic terminology that no actual street-smart kid from the inner city would ever use. The LGBTQ characters reference their sexuality through sanitized references that feel like public service announcements rather than authentic human experience. The villain turns out to be a white male industrialist who wants to use the protagonist's powers for profit and military applications. He represents everything contemporary audiences have been taught to hate about traditional masculine authority. Corporate greed, military aggression, exploitation of natural resources, disregard for community values. He literally looks like what a progressive focus group would design as the perfect embodiment of patriarchal capitalist oppression. He's basically every toxic masculine stereotype rolled into one character, Tiffany observes, apparently impressed by the subtlety of this characterization. It's such a perfect representation of how the patriarchy tries to co-opt and control female power. The patriarchy. She's discussing the patriarchy while watching a movie produced by a multinational corporation that made billions of dollars selling the same formulaic entertainment to global audiences. The same corporate executives she thinks are fighting patriarchal oppression are the ones who decided that female empowerment narratives would test well with key demographic groups and generate positive media coverage. The action sequences follow the standard Marvel template of CGI spectacle designed to overwhelm audiences with sensory input while avoiding any violence that might affect the PG-13 rating. Buildings collapse without killing civilians. Explosions create dramatic visual effects without showing actual human consequences. The protagonist's powers allow her to defeat enemies through colorful energy blasts that look impressive but don't require the filmmakers to depict realistic violence or moral complexity. Between action scenes, the film delivers heavy-handed messages about accepting differences, fighting injustice, and believing in yourself. The dialogue sounds like it was adapted from motivational posters and self-help books. Every conversation reinforces the same basic themes about diversity being strength and traditional authority being oppressive. The characters don't talk like actual people, they talk like corporate PR representatives promoting contemporary social justice initiatives. The messaging is so important, Tiffany says during a scene where the protagonist gives a speech about how her community's diversity makes them stronger than their oppressors. Young girls need to see heroes who look like them and represent their experiences. Heroes who look like them. The protagonist is a conventionally attractive actress who was probably discovered through modeling or beauty pageants and trained by acting coaches to deliver focus-grouped dialogue about empowerment and social justice. Her experience consists of memorizing scripts written by screenwriters who've never lived in the communities they're attempting to represent. The film's version of diversity means casting actors with different skin colors and sexual orientations to deliver identical messages about contemporary progressive values. There's no actual cultural diversity in terms of different worldviews, moral frameworks, or approaches to problem solving. Everyone agrees about what constitutes justice and equality and proper social relations. The only conflicts come from evil people who oppose these obviously correct positions. This represents the fundamental dishonesty of contemporary entertainment industry diversity initiatives. They provide superficial representation while eliminating any genuine cultural differences that might challenge audience assumptions or require complex moral reasoning. It's diversity without diversity of thought. Inclusion without inclusion of different values or perspectives. The climax involves the protagonist realizing that her true power comes from accepting help from her diverse community rather than trying to succeed through individual effort. This represents the standard contemporary message that collective identity and group solidarity are superior to individual achievement and personal responsibility. Traditional American values like self-reliance and meritocracy are portrayed as selfish and ultimately ineffective. That's such a beautiful message about community and interdependence, Tiffany says, apparently moved by this profound insight about how people are stronger when they work together, which is exactly the kind of obvious observation that gets treated as revolutionary wisdom in contemporary popular culture. The final battle takes place in a gentrified neighborhood where the villain's development project threatens to displace the protagonist's working-class community. This allows the film to incorporate commentary about economic inequality and urban development without examining the complex factors that actually drive gentrification or considering alternative perspectives on economic development and housing policy. The resolution involves the protagonist using her powers to defeat the villain while preserving her community's character and preventing displacement of long-term residents. It's a fantasy solution to real social problems that suggests supernatural intervention is more realistic than policy reform or economic development strategies that might actually address underlying causes of urban inequality. During the credits, Tiffany takes photos of herself looking satisfied and inspired by the cinematic experience she just consumed. She immediately starts composing Instagram captions about supporting diverse storytelling and how important it is for entertainment to reflect contemporary social values and represent marginalized communities in mainstream media. That was incredible, she says, already planning how to incorporate the film's themes into her personal brand messaging about empowerment and social consciousness. I feel so inspired by her journey and the way she learned to embrace her authentic self while fighting for justice. Inspired by a corporate entertainment product designed to make audiences feel good about consuming the right kind of media while avoiding any genuine challenge to their assumptions or comfortable lifestyle choices. The film provides 2 hours of moral validation disguised as heroic adventure, allowing viewers to experience vicarious righteousness without any actual risk or sacrifice. Walking out of the theater, I observed the other audience members discussing the film with the kind of earnest enthusiasm usually reserved for religious experiences or political rallies. They're analyzing the representation and discussing the social messages as if they've just witnessed important cultural commentary rather than focus-grouped marketing materials designed to sell merchandise and streaming subscriptions. I think that's what great art is supposed to do, says some college-aged woman to her boyfriend. It should make you think about important social issues while also being entertaining and accessible to mainstream audiences. Great art. She's calling a Marvel movie great art because it reinforced her existing political beliefs while providing sufficient CGI spectacle to maintain her attention for 2 hours. This represents the complete collapse of aesthetic standards and cultural literacy that allows corporate entertainment products to be discussed as if they possess artistic merit or intellectual significance. The lobby is filled with families buying merchandise featuring the new superhero character. T-shirts, action figures, collectible items that will be forgotten as soon as the next installment in the franchise is released. Children wearing costumes and discussing which powers they would want to have. Parents spending hundreds of dollars on branded products that transform their children into walking advertisements for multinational entertainment corporations. We should get some of the merchandise, Tiffany suggests, apparently believing that purchasing licensed products demonstrates support for the progressive values the film claims to represent. It would be such a cute addition to my apartment aesthetic. Her apartment aesthetic. She wants to decorate her living space with toys based on corporate superhero properties because she thinks this communicates something meaningful about her personality and values. Everything in her life gets filtered through the lens of personal branding and social media presentation, including her consumption of entertainment products and political messaging. As we drive home in the Cybertruck, Tiffany continues discussing the film's themes and their relevance to contemporary social issues. She's planning to write a blog post about representation in superhero movies and how important it is for entertainment companies to prioritize diversity and inclusion in their casting and storytelling decisions. I think this represents a real shift in Hollywood, she says, apparently unaware that Hollywood's shift toward diversity represents calculated market research rather than genuine commitment to social justice. Studios are finally realizing that audiences want stories that reflect the real world and include perspectives that have been historically marginalized. The real world. The film we just watched featured a character who can manipulate interdimensional energy and fight monsters that threaten to destroy reality. The real-world elements consisted of simplified references to contemporary social issues stripped of any complexity or nuance that might require audiences to think critically about proposed solutions or alternative perspectives. Hollywood's diversity initiatives represent the same kind of superficial progressive branding that characterizes every other major industry in contemporary America. Corporations adopt the language and imagery of social justice movements while maintaining the same profit-maximizing strategies and exploitative labor practices that generated their wealth in the first place. Entertainment companies discovered that progressive political messaging tests well with key demographic groups and generates positive media coverage while avoiding controversy that might affect international box office returns. They're not advancing social justice. They're monetizing social justice rhetoric by packaging it as consumer entertainment for audiences who want to feel good about their political beliefs without examining their actual lifestyle choices or economic relationships. The film industry's version of diversity means hiring actors with different physical characteristics to deliver identical messages about contemporary progressive orthodoxy. There's no actual diversity of thought, values, or cultural perspectives. Every film reinforces the same basic assumptions about what constitutes justice, equality, and proper social relations. This creates entertainment that functions as ideological programming disguised as artistic expression. Audiences consume corporate products that reinforce their existing political beliefs while providing enough sensory stimulation to maintain engagement and generate positive emotional associations with the underlying messages. The result is a population that mistakes consuming the right entertainment products for political activism and social consciousness. They think watching diverse movies makes them progressive while their actual economic behavior supports the same corporate systems that create the inequality and exploitation they claim to oppose. It's the perfect system for maintaining social control while providing the illusion of resistance and empowerment. People feel like they're fighting injustice by purchasing tickets to movies that critique injustice while spending money that supports the same corporate structures that create injustice in the first place. And they're completely unaware of the contradiction because the entertainment industry has successfully convinced them that consumption equals activism and representation equals equality. They've been trained to mistake symbolic victories for actual progress and corporate marketing campaigns for genuine social change. The whole system is so perfectly designed to manufacture consent and channel dissent into profitable consumer behavior that it approaches genius-level social engineering. Except most of the people running it are probably too stupid to understand what they've created. They just know that progressive messaging generates revenue and positive press coverage, so they keep producing more of it without understanding the larger implications. But the implications are clear to anyone with basic understanding of psychology and social dynamics. When you train people to mistake consumption for activism and entertainment for education, you create a population that feels engaged with important social issues while remaining completely passive and politically ineffective. They think they're fighting the system by consuming products that the system creates specifically to neutralize their political energy and channel their dissent into profitable consumer behavior. They've been convinced that the corporations exploiting them are actually their allies in the fight against exploitation. It's beautiful in its sophistication and horrifying in its effectiveness. And most people are too psychologically invested in the system to recognize what's happening to them even when it's explained in explicit detail. They prefer the comfortable delusion that their entertainment choices matter to the uncomfortable reality that they're being systematically manipulated by people who understand their psychology better than they understand it themselves. Which is exactly why the system works so well and why it will continue working until something external forces it to collapse. The people being exploited have been convinced that their exploitation represents empowerment and their manipulation represents enlightenment. They're willing participants in their own psychological colonization. And they'll defend the system that's exploiting them against anyone who tries to reveal how it actually operates. Perfect.